Hello everybody, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jackie and I create mosaics using sea glass. And today I'm going to talk to you about my sea glass mosaic flower bed, part 1. So this video is all about getting started on creating a sea glass mosaic. And my plan is to do a series of videos, one a week, until I get this piece finished, to show you my progress along the way and to show you the steps that you should go through in order to create a sea glass mosaic. Now if you want to see all of my steps in quite a bit of detail, you can check out my book. It's called Windows to the Past, Creating Sea Glass Mosaic Art. You'll find it on my website, jackietrimperseaglass.com. But today I'm going to talk to you about just that first process, how to get yourself started. Now you'll see I have my frame. My frame here is all set and ready to go. And if you wanted to see how I prepared this frame, I did do a video on preparing antique window frames, and you can go back and watch that video. This frame is one of the frames that I do prepare in that video, so that will get that part done. The other thing you have to do is to pick out some special sea glass. So I have picked out a few special pieces of sea glass that I want to use for this particular mosaic. And I've also got a bunch of my brown sea glass here. The next thing you need to do is you have to have a plan in place, or a pattern. And in this case I haven't drawn a pattern. In some of my videos you'll notice that I draw a pattern and I tape it to the back. But for this one I'm planning to do a flower bed. And what my plan is to do it somewhat freehand, so I'm not actually drawing a pattern. What kind of got me started on thinking about this one is this particular frame has quite a bit of a crack right here, and I decided I wanted to do a flower bed that kind of followed along that crack and just had some random flowers placed throughout the piece. So that's where I'm planning to go with that. So I'm not going to draw my flower bed out entirely, but I have these cracks here and I wanted to make sure that the lines that I do flow evenly with the cracks. So what I'm doing, I'm taking a dry erase marker and I'm just going to follow along a little bit on the back. And then when I'm doing the sea glass, I'll be sure to try and keep my lines consistent. And then they'll sort of flow from one pane to the other. You can see that I made that one a little bit crooked for what I'm wanting. So I'm just going to redo that one. And maybe I'll go all the way up here with this line. And I want this crack here, I want the line to finish down here. So I'm just going to, on the front of the piece, follow these lines. And then I'll have flowers and different detail. You'll see as I'm going. So that's all I'm doing for the pattern. Fairly simple. And when you've got dry erase on the back, you can easily switch it or rub it off when you're finished. So I'm ready to get going. So one of the first things I like to do in a design like this, I have a little dish of pieces that I went through my stash of rocks and shells and sea glass and picked out some special pieces that I thought I'd like to use. So I'm just going to take some of those and place them somewhere along here. Now, so I don't know exactly where they're going to go, but I think I'll just place them on the glass. In the end, I may not use them. But I find it helpful for a design like this to just have some interesting pieces of sea glass, some interesting rocks. I have some round rocks here which might be good centers for flowers, so I'm just going to set them maybe up on the ledge. This is typically the way I work. I just have stuff lying around and see what is inspiring to me. I brought some blue pieces down. I brought a bunch of red rocks. I'll have my little pile of red rocks sitting there so I can pull from them when I want. And I had a few kind of yellowish type rocks that I thought were cool that I might use. So I'm just going to put all of those out. And some mussel shells. So I'm just putting all those out on the glass for inspiration for my flowers when I'm going. I'm not using them right away, but I will eventually. So the place where I like to start on a lot of my pieces is brown, because brown really grounds the design. And for a window like this, I know I want to have a lot of large brown pieces on the bottom. So I have this dish of large brown sea glass, and I'm pulling some of my larger brown pieces from out there. And I usually start just by laying things down. I'm working upside down in order to show you, so that would not typically be my approach. I like to work from the other side, but for laying out a few pieces, I can do that. I can be a little bit flexible here today. This is something that's kind of interesting. A kick-up, where you have the side sticking up like that. And those kind, when you're working on an antique window, I kind of like putting those at the bottom like that sometimes. And then I'll probably put some sort of extra detail sitting on it. So I think I'll set that there. So I'm just going to fuss through. Now with this line, this crack, I really want the crack covered, because for one thing, I don't want to be able to see the crack, but for another, it strengthens that crack. If you've got a really good amount of silicone and you're covering it with glass, you want that to be nice and strong and have a good seal. I've already covered the back with silicone, but I want to cover the front as well, so that it's good and strong and there's less chance that that crack will actually break. So this is fairly typical for me. I've been fussing and fiddling with the pieces for quite a while now, and it gets to the point where I just have to say, okay, go ahead, start gluing on. So you can see I haven't glued anything on yet, and sometimes I just have to force myself and say, Jackie, do it. Time to start gluing on. So starting at the bottom, I always put my little top for my thing at the side there so I can find it, because I often lose track of it. And I just say, okay, I've been fiddling with these pieces long enough. I have to start attaching some of them. So I'll start at the bottom, and even once things are in place here, I might rearrange them a bit as I'm going, or I might say, nope, that's exactly where it should go. So I'm going to put a bunch of these on. And I often find when I'm working with brown like this, it doesn't look very stunning, but when you get your piece finished and it's hanging in a window, this brown at the bottom can just be incredible. And sometimes I have to be really disciplined with myself to not move into the white and the green too soon, because I find I can get tempted, because the green and the white is so pretty. But I have to be careful not to skimp on the brown, because all that brown is really stunning. And you really need the brown to ground your design and to give it a base for the other colors to shine off. So don't give in to your temptation to go skimpy on brown. And I've noticed here too that I have some big pieces of brown, but some aren't so big. It's kind of interesting too. If you look at that piece right there, typically if I found that piece at the beach, I would throw it back. But for some reason I kept it, and even though it's kind of rough, it fits and it works. So some of these ones that you would think, oh, I'm never going to use that, it's not a nice enough sea glass piece. When you're trying to create some texture at the bottom of a piece, with different colors of brown, different thicknesses of brown, and some roughness, it can really add a little bit to have some pieces that aren't perfectly done. Sitting right beside a piece like this, which is big and thick, and it's been in the water for years and years. It's got so much weatheredness on it. Of the stem for these flowers, this one here is actually green, it's not brown, and sometimes I'll include some of those dark pieces of green in with my brown, just because it looks like brown when it's sitting there without any light on it, but when the sun shines through it, you see a bit of green tinge. Adds a bit of interest. Everything that adds interest is good in my books. Now here's a spot where I wanted a piece to go on its edge, and especially in the bottom of a piece where I've got all this brown that grounds things down. I like having some pieces that sit up on their edge because it adds some more depth and dimension. Now here I am covering the crack, and when I'm covering the crack I tend to put a little bit of extra silicone because I want that, it's not just gluing the piece on, it's also securing the crack. And especially this piece, this is kind of a curved piece because it would have been from the curvy edge of a beer bottle. A lot of my brown comes from beer bottles. Love the beer bottles getting thrown over the side of the fishing boat. Gives me lots of brown to work with. So these ones, they'll take longer to set and dry because I'm using extra silicone, but that's okay. So I'm going to carry on here and do a bunch more of my brown because I have achieved what I set out to do today, which was to get started and to show you the process that I go through to get started. So if you have anything in particular that you'd like to see me address during these videos, please post a comment and I will address them in future videos. And we'll see you next time.